On October 2020, the biggest loan scam in Korean history, called Optimus Fund fraud, is under fire, as a great number of key politicians in South Korea have become embroiled in the incident. As everybody now knows, Hyeok-jin is allegedly the main culprit of the Optimus crisis. This YouTube aims to introduce a letter sent by representatives of American Koreans to several relevant authorities, including the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, on July 22, 2020. The letter urged them to chase Hyeok-jin, who has fled to the United States, and repatriate him to South Korea immediately for thorough and fair investigations on this crime. A plea from the USA Korean migrants to deport Alex Lee to South Korea. We Korean Americans are ordinary citizens working hard to contribute to the country with great appreciation to the USA. The reason why we write this petition is to urge the US, including DHS, to find a Korean, Hyeok-jin, who reportedly lives in San Francisco, the USA. We would like you to deport him to South Korea immediately within your capacity. Act diplomatic dialogues with all the authorities involved. Mr. Lee used to be representative of this Optimus company and fled to the United States in 2018 when prosecutors began investigating this crime. Detailed description on the nature of the scheme, the grounds for our request, and our further wishes are provided at the rear of this letter and appendix. Please use the following information as a reference when chasing him. Hyeok-jin is a Korean name and his English name is Alex Lee. Hyeok-jin currently operates a kimchi sales and delivery business in San Francisco, California. His address is 9 Glasgow Street, 3893 square foot home. He and his wife are members of the San Francisco Korean American Association. They were appointed at the 19th National Unification Advisory Council by President Moon Jae-in in September 2019. Mr. Lee also runs JNC TV YouTube. Thank you so much for your attention to this matter. We're looking forward to receiving your reply as early as possible. Representing Korean migrants residing in the United States. Appendix. The first part of this YouTube will explain 5 reasons for his repatriation. Number 1. Hyeok-jin is allegedly the largest financial fund criminal in South Korea. He was the founder and representative of Optimus Fund Management in 2009. He is currently accused of the embezzlement for committing largest financial fraud. It involved 500 billion won, US 500 million, which is the biggest amount of fund gathered from investors, half of whom are from private individuals. The Optimus instance is a hoax where investors were told to invest their money on a stable public enterprise, such as a government-affiliated institution or a public institution receivables. Contrary to this, the money was then invested in an unlisted corporate bond. In other words, Optimus Asset Management, a private equity fund manager, invested a large sum of 500 billion won in bad debts from real OTC companies and blew it away intentionally for their personal gains. Mr. Lee resigned as a representative in July 2017. The instance is under investigation and currently 3 employees have been arrested. Number 2. Hyeok-jin fled to the United States while being investigated by the prosecution for being charged with many criminal activities in South Korea. Hyeok-jin used to be a member of a gangster group called Singdong-bang, which has committed many crimes in the past. He had three criminal records during 2002-2003, including crimes such as fraud and embezzlement. He was being investigated by the prosecution because he was embezzling 700 million won of company money over a total of 423 times from February 2013 to March 2017. In 2016, he was sentenced to 6 months in prison and 4 years in probation from the Supreme Court of Appeal for rape homicide. In 2018, he disappeared suddenly in the middle of 5 cases involved in the investigation, including charges with tax evasion, accident injuries, and sexual assault. During the appeal process, he left for Vietnam in March 2018 and entered United States. Despite his history involved in many serious crimes, he was not prohibited or barred from departing for other countries, including the USA. Number 3. It is evident that he has close ties with many influential figures of left-wing government, and it is suspected that the current Moon government helped bury the corrupted nepotism and ignore his crimes. He was close to Moon Jae-in, the incumbent president, Im Jong-suk, former state secretary who is the hardest line Juche follows, and Park Won-soon, the deceased Seoul city mayor, and others. He ran for candidate in 19th parliamentary election in 2012 by the support of a Democratic Party, but failed. He received the nomination even though he was convicted of assaulting his ex-wife and was guilty of the case. He worked for the Moon Jae-in camp during the presidential election 2017. He was a former finance advisor and served as a key committee member for the Inter-Korean Economic and Cultural Cooperation Foundation, which was run by Lim Jong-suk. In 2006, he went to North Korea with Im Jong-suk and also accompanied him to Vietnam and the UAE in 2018. Since 2018, there has been no investigation carried out, even though mounting complaints have been lodged against related organizations. Number 4. While he claims to be innocent from the case, his claim was refuted by other members involved in the fraud scam. Mr. Lee claims that he is a victim of the robbery of the company and further argued that we need to investigate Optimus' alternative investment representative Jung Young-jae, who is responsible for financing in the Optimus Advisory Group. However, Jung Young-jae, CEO of Golden Core, refuted his claims in that he is spreading false information because we are concerned that former CEO Lee will be repatriated as a criminal. It is reported that Mr. Jung is also hiding somewhere and on the run to China. These two persons must be thus summoned to clarify who is more responsible for the case. Number 5. Mr. Lee may have prepared for financial fraud in the United States. Mr. Lee and his wife have approached the American Korean community and are acting as citizen leaders with the support of the current regime. 2 months before his overseas escape in January 2018, the couple with someone else established a private fund company. The second part of this YouTube will cover Korean-American pleas in regards to the dealing of the couple. It is the same of Korean citizens that such criminals live in American society. We would like the following authorities and the institution relevant to cooperate to deport Mr. Lee immediately. Action must be taken toward the couple for the sake of the interest and the protection of Korean community USA. The Korean American Association of San Francisco sued, dismissed the couple. Embassies of San Francisco should also support deportation of Mr. Lee. The Korean embassy in the USA should investigate how the couple obtained their visas. The U.S. Democratic and Peaceful Unification Advisory Council should withdraw the appointment of the couple. In South Korea, the prosecution should request repatriation immediately. The Department of Foreign Affairs in South Korea should ask the United States for assistance in the investigation. Most importantly, a special task force should be formed to investigate the fraud case thoroughly and indiscriminately. Thank you for listening to this YouTube.